The Republican Party is currently experiencing a surge in nearly every state. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back again with a new video, and today we have to talk about the 2024 presidential election because it appears that Republicans are experiencing a surge in nearly every state. And I know, that sounds crazy to say, like, look at the polling. The polls are showing a close race, which that's true. I'm not denying that the polls do indicate we have a closer race. But when you look at other data points, it becomes very apparent that while, yes, it is getting better for Democrats, it's still not good news at all. Hell, it's actually awful. Across the board, you look at any other metric, it becomes apparent that Democrats have a big problem. And the biggest data point that's indicating this is voter registration. Now, I want to be clear that that doesn't mean that there's going to be a red tsunami, because while, yes, voter registration can indicate trends, it doesn't automatically mean that you're going to see a red tsunami because Republicans gained more voters. That's not the case. But when you have Republicans gaining in virtually every state, and not just by like 0.1%, in a bunch of states, they have been absolutely killing Democrats across the board. Yeah, it is very bad news for Democrats in every state. Let's start with Florida, which I know it's a Republican state, but just 4 years ago, Democrats had a voter registration advantage of 134,000. As of today, the updated numbers show Republicans are up by 1 million voters. Yeah, that's a swing of 1.1 million voters in just 4 years. Hell, you could just look at the number from August, and it becomes very apparent that, yeah, Democrats have a big problem here. Look at this. Republicans gained just under 60,000 voters. Democrats gained only 33,000. Now, it is better than it was a couple months ago, which tells you everything. So yes, Democrats are doing slightly better than beforehand, but these numbers are awful. You're talking about Republicans out-registering Democrats by 2-to-1 margins. And even if you gave Democrats every single independent voter gained in the last month, Republicans still gained more in total. Folks, this is a big deal, and I know it's Florida, so there might be some former Democrats that became Republicans. I get that. It is trending Republican, so it isn't that big of a surprise. But these are still huge margins, and it indicates that, yes, Republicans, they're doing better in Florida, obviously, but you're talking about 2-to-1 margins. Not, oh yeah, Republicans are doing a couple thousand votes better. No, you're talking about they out-registered Democrats by 30,000 votes. And let's look at other states. Let's look at Kentucky, which I know there's a lot of ancestral Democrats in the state of Kentucky. I get that. There's a bunch of them that they haven't voted Republican in 20 years, but they still register as a Democrat. I get that. But look at this. Republicans gained 7,000 voters in the month of August. Democrats gained only 1,000. Hell, you could give Democrats every single independent voter in the month of August, and they would still lose to Republicans by 2-to-1 margins. So yes, a large chunk of this is, of course, ancestral Democrats that are finally becoming Republicans. I get that. That's a large part of this swing in a state like Kentucky. Or even states like Florida or Pennsylvania. There are a lot of ancestral Democrats in those states, especially Pennsylvania. Like, look at southwestern PA. Some of those counties, I believe, are still plurality Democrat, even though they voted for Trump by like 30 points or whatever. So there are a lot of ancestral Democrats left. I get that. They now vote Republican. But the problem with just saying that it's every single new voter is just ancestral Democrats is in places like Chester County, Pennsylvania. It used to be a Republican stronghold, but in recent years, it has trended towards the Democrat Party. Hell, I think Trump lost it by like 20 points. Yeah, he lost it by 20 points in 2020. For crying out loud, Romney won it back in 2012. So it used to be a Republican county, but now it's not. Well, guess what? Recent voter registration data indicates that Republicans are killing Democrats here. Yeah, this isn't an ancestral Democrat stronghold. It's the opposite. It used to be a Republican stronghold for decades. But it seems like in recent months, Republicans have gained a bunch of voters in Chester County, Pennsylvania. Now, does that mean it's going to trend 15 points Republican? No. But these are counties that have been trending Democrat for years that in recent months, out of the blue, have been shifting Republican. That's not good for Democrats. If this was just ancestral Democrats shifting towards the Republican Party, which, okay, in a state like Kentucky, even a state like Pennsylvania, that could be a part of it. But what about the ancestral Republican voter in Chester County, PA, that used to vote Republican, and they're still a Republican, at least party-wise, but they vote straight Democrat? What about them? You're telling me that not a single one of them are flipping parties? Bullcrap. There are plenty of them that are flipping to the Democrat Party. The problem is, Republicans are killing Democrats so badly with new voters, with former Democrats, with other voters, that, yeah, Democrats gain some of these people to their party, but they're getting crushed with every other voter group. But alright, you might not be convinced. Like, okay, Kentucky, it's ancestral Democrats, and Florida, it's trending Republican. That's why you're seeing big shifts towards the GOP. That's it. Well, look at this. New Mexico. New Mexico is not a Republican state. Far from it. It voted for Biden by over 10 points back in 2020. It's a Democrat state. Yet in the month of August, Republicans gained 1,500 voters. Democrats gained only 1,000. Yeah. And the Democrat advantage since 2020 has gone down by 30 to 40,000 votes in New Mexico. It used to be around 190,000 voters. Now it's only 160,000. Yeah, New Mexico. Not a Republican stronghold. It's not even a swing state, at least on paper it's not. But by some miracle, the state of New Mexico had a big shift to the right in recent months. Hell, Massachusetts, one of the most Democrat states in the country, had a big shift towards the GOP. Look at this. Since February, Republicans have gained 3,500 voters. Democrats have lost 9,000 voters. This is Massachusetts, and I know they don't do it by month, so we have to estimate that maybe a large chunk of this happened before Biden dropped out. It probably did. But even then, this is Massachusetts. This is not a Republican state. This is one of the most bluest states in the country. But by some miracle, it's shifting Republican. That doesn't mean Trump's going to win it. I should be clear that a state like Massachusetts or New Mexico, they're not going to vote for Trump. They're not. Just because Republicans gained a bunch of voters in both states, that doesn't mean it's going to trend 50 points Republican and then vote for him. That's not going to happen. But if Democrats are having this big of a problem in Massachusetts, what do you think's happening in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, even a state like Georgia? Massachusetts is a very Democrat state, yet they're losing voters. Now, people are going to say, but look at the other vote share. It went up by 102,000 voters. Fine, that's another argument you can make. These other voters, they could lean to the left. Maybe. That's a good possibility, especially in a state like Massachusetts. I would assume that the quote-unquote independents, they probably lean towards the Democrat Party, obviously. But here's the problem. SoCal Data, a good friend of the channel, he's been doing a bunch of polls recently, and he found something fascinating. Those that are recently registered to vote, you know, the people that just became new voters like a week ago or a month ago, they're breaking for Trump by 16 points. Yeah, not by 1, not by 2, but by 16 points. This is the most pro-Trump demographic of these groups, compared to Always Vote, which is the Harris Block, only voted presidential elections is Trump plus 11. Sometimes vote, Harris plus 1. Rarely / never vote, Trump plus 10. But those that just became new voters, like a month ago, they're breaking for Trump by over 16 points. So much for that theory that these new voters, they're old Democrats. I'm not denying that a large chunk of these other voters, they could be, Democrats. I get that. But the problem is, it's clear that these new voters that just became new voters, they lean towards Trump by 16 points. That's the problem. And not just that, but when you have big swings like in Florida, like in Kentucky, New Mexico, even Massachusetts, it's a sign of enthusiasm. Like, yeah, a bunch of these Democrats, they could be registering as other or independents, but the problem is, that doesn't necessarily mean they're that enthusiastic to vote for the Democrat Party. You see the problem? Because, okay, they may be registered to vote, but if they're this enthusiastic to vote for Harris or other Democrats, which I'm not denying that some of these independents that are, Democrats, they probably are enthusiastic to vote for Harris. I get that. But do you really think that every single one of these other voters are just partisan Democrats? Do you really think they're going to break for Harris by 80 points? I don't think so. They may break for Harris, but maybe by 20. And that might be pushing it because we have recent polling suggesting that those that become registered voters recently, they're leaning towards Trump. But okay, let's say they break for Harris by 20. You're still getting killed in voter registration in Florida, in Kentucky, in New Mexico, and Massachusetts, obviously, with it having such a large independent vote share. Okay, congratulations, you win the independents in Massachusetts. Congratulations. What about New Mexico? What about Florida? And I know these are not necessarily competitive states, but they still indicate there's a trend towards the Republican Party when it comes to voter registration. It's a sign of enthusiasm. Is it better for Democrats than it was a couple months ago? Yeah. But it's not this magical surge they were banking on. Like, okay, it stopped the bleeding a little bit, but they're still getting crushed. According to this metric, they're getting killed in Florida, New Mexico, Kentucky, Louisiana, Pennsylvania. Hell, Massachusetts. There's some signs that they're struggling. I'm not saying we're going to flip Massachusetts. It's going to vote for Harris by like 30, whatever. But if they're struggling here, what do you think's happening in other swing states? States that really will decide the election. You see the problem? These numbers are horrific for Democrats across the board. There's no good news here. Because even if these other voters are majority Democrat, you would need them to be like 80% Democrat. Or something crazy like that to make up this huge gap that you have in every state. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.